Hong Kong. The name evokes images of a vibrant, bustling metropolis, a city that never sleeps, where the old and new coexist in a harmonious blend. It is a fusion of Eastern and Western cultures, a place where you can find traditional Chinese festivals, celebrated with as much fervor as Western holidays. Towering skyscrapers cast shadows on ancient temples, creating a striking contrast that is uniquely Hong Kong. Here, the past and the present are not just neighbors, they are intertwined. Traditional markets thrive alongside luxury boutiques, offering everything from fresh produce to high-end fashion. This juxtaposition is a testament to the city's dynamic character. This unique blend is rooted in Hong Kong's complex history, a history that has seen the city transform from a small fishing village to a global financial hub. A history deeply intertwined with British colonialism. British influence is evident in the city's architecture, legal system, and even its educational institutions. For over 150 years, Hong Kong was a British colony, a period that left an indelible mark on its identity and destiny. This colonial era brought about significant changes, from infrastructure development to the introduction of Western customs and governance. To understand why Britain handed Hong Kong back to China in 1997, we must first journey back to the 19th century, to the era of the Opium Wars. The Opium Wars were a series of conflicts between China and Britain, primarily over trade imbalances and the illegal opium trade. These wars resulted in the Treaty of Nanking, which ceded Hong Kong Island to Britain. This marked the beginning of Hong Kong's colonial era, setting the stage for its transformation into the city we know today. The seeds of British control over Hong Kong were sown in the Opium Wars. These conflicts, which took place in the mid-19th century, were pivotal moments in the history of both China and Britain. They marked the beginning of a new era of Western influence in Asia, driven by trade, conflict, and diplomacy. In the early 19th century, Britain, eager for tea, silk, and other Chinese goods, faced a trade imbalance with China. The British were importing vast quantities of Chinese tea, silk, and porcelain, but the Chinese had little interest in British goods. This created a significant trade deficit for Britain, which they were desperate to resolve. To counter this, Britain began trading opium, a highly addictive drug, grown in India, for Chinese tea. The opium trade quickly became highly lucrative for the British, but it had devastating effects on Chinese society. Addiction spread rapidly, causing widespread social and economic disruption. The Chinese government, alarmed by the growing crisis, took measures to ban the opium trade and destroy opium stocks. This trade, deeply damaging to Chinese society, led to the First Opium War, from 1839 to 1842. The Chinese government's efforts to suppress the opium trade led to direct conflict with Britain. The British, determined to protect their profitable trade, responded with military force. The war saw several key battles, with British forces using their superior naval and military technology to gain the upper hand. Britain, with its superior naval power, emerged victorious. The British Navy, equipped with advanced ships and weaponry, was able to defeat the Chinese forces decisively. This victory not only secured British interests in the opium trade, but also marked the beginning of a period of significant British influence in China. The Treaty of Nanking, which ended the war, forced China to cede Hong Kong Island to Britain in perpetuity. This treaty was the first of what the Chinese later called the unequal treaties, which imposed harsh terms on China and favored Western powers. The cession of Hong Kong marked the start of British colonial rule in the region, which would last for over 150 years. The treaty also opened up several Chinese ports to British trade, further expanding British influence in the region. The legacy of the Opium Wars and the Treaty of Nanking had long-lasting effects on Sino-British relations and the history of Hong Kong. The First Opium War marked the beginning of British colonialism in Hong Kong. However, it was the Second Opium War, from 1856 to 1860, sparked by ongoing trade disputes and Chinese resistance to opium, that solidified British control. Following their victory in the Second War, the British expanded their territory to include Kowloon Peninsula in 1860. Then, in 1898, seeking to further secure their position, the British negotiated a 99-year lease for the new territories, a large area adjacent to Kowloon, significantly expanding the size of British Hong Kong. The 99-year lease of the new territories became a ticking clock for British rule in Hong Kong. This lease, signed in 1898, was a pivotal agreement that shaped the future of Hong Kong. As the years passed, the significance of this lease grew, casting a long shadow over the region's destiny. As the lease expiration date of July 1, 1997 approached, the question of Hong Kong's future loomed large. The streets of Hong Kong buzzed with anticipation and uncertainty. People wondered what the end of British rule would mean for their daily lives, their freedoms, and their economic prospects. The skyline, a testament to decades of growth and prosperity, stood as a silent witness to the impending change. The new territories by then constituted the vast majority of Hong Kong's landmass and were crucial for the colony's economic viability. This region was not just a geographical expanse, it was the heartbeat of Hong Kong's agricultural and industrial activities. The bustling marketplaces and thriving economic activities in the new territories were a testament to its importance. Without it, Hong Kong's economic structure would be incomplete, making the lease's expiration a matter of grave concern. Returning only Hong Kong Island and Kowloon, while retaining the new territories, was not a practical option. The interconnectedness of these regions meant that separating them would disrupt the social and economic fabric of Hong Kong. The harbor, a symbol of Hong Kong's maritime prowess, and the colonial buildings, standing as relics of British rule, all pointed to a unified entity that could not be easily divided. The complexity of the situation required a comprehensive solution. The countdown to 1997 necessitated a solution, leading to a period of intense diplomatic negotiations between Britain and China. These negotiations were not just about land, they were about the future of millions of people. Diplomatic corridors buzzed with activity as both nations sought a peaceful and practical resolution. The preparations for the handover ceremony were meticulous, symbolizing the gravity of the moment. The world watched as history unfolded, marking the end of an era and the beginning of a new chapter for Hong Kong. The future of Hong Kong became a subject of intense negotiation between Britain and China throughout the 1980s. China, under Deng Xiaoping's leadership, was firm in its resolve to reclaim sovereignty over all of Hong Kong. Britain, while acknowledging China's claims, sought to safeguard Hong Kong's way of life and its capitalist system. These negotiations culminated in the signing of the Sino-British Joint Declaration in 1984. This historic agreement set the stage for Hong Kong's return to China under the framework of one country, two systems. The world watched on July 1, 1997, as the British flag was lowered over Hong Kong for the last time, replaced by the flag of the People's Republic of China. The handover ceremony, a meticulously choreographed event attended by dignitaries from around the world, marked the end of British colonial rule and the beginning of a new era for Hong Kong. The one country, two systems framework, enshrined in the Joint Declaration, promised Hong Kong a high degree of autonomy, preserving its capitalist system, legal system, and way of life for 50 years. The handover of Hong Kong marked a unique moment in history. Never before had a major colonial city been returned to its sovereign power under such a framework. The one country, two systems principle aimed to preserve Hong Kong's distinct identity and way of life within the framework of a socialist China. This meant that Hong Kong would retain its capitalist economic system, its legal system based on English common law, and its freedoms of speech, assembly, and religion, freedoms not enjoyed in mainland China. The post-handover years have not been without their challenges for Hong Kong. The city has faced economic downturns, political protests, and social tensions. The implementation of the one country, two systems framework has been tested at times. Concerns have been raised about the erosion of Hong Kong's autonomy, particularly in areas like freedom of speech and press freedom. The relationship between Hong Kong and mainland China remains complex and, at times, fraught with tension. Despite the challenges, Hong Kong remains one of the world's most dynamic and important cities. Its unique history, a blend of East and West, has shaped its identity and its destiny. The legacy of British colonialism is still evident in its legal system, its institutions, and its culture. As Hong Kong navigates the 21st century, it continues to grapple with its identity as a global city firmly rooted in Chinese history and culture, a city forever marked by its colonial past and its uncertain future.